Hello, welcome to another edition of Radio Free Decipher. We are back in the office after 2 weeks on the road, going to Origins in San Diego. We've just got 1 week turnaround here before we are out on the road again, this time attending Wizard World in Chicago and Gen Con in Milwaukee. Kyle is also back in the office, but will not be joining us this afternoon. He's busy making preparations for those two shows. First, a little bit of news for you, and then we actually have accumulated some clips from the San Diego convention that you did not get to hear last week. The news, of course, will begin with the release date for Young Jedi Enhanced Menace of Darth Maul. We are pleased to announce that product will be hitting the stores on August 2nd. You will be able to buy it at that time. We are very pleased to be bringing that to you after a few packaging concerns. Unfortunately, we are still facing some difficulty with the Trouble With Tribbles and cannot yet confirm a release date for that, but as soon as we have it, we will be announcing it on our website. There will, however, be pre-release tournaments for the Trouble With Tribbles taking place at Wizard World. There will be 4 pre-release events, so if you do get a chance to get out to Wizard World, you will get your first peek at the Trouble With Tribbles cards. So now we'll turn you over to clips of San Diego Comic-Con. We have interviews with Steve Sansweet of Lucasfilm, Steve Saffel of Del Rey Books, and writer R.A. Salvatore of Vector Prime. I hope you enjoy the clips, and we will be back with you next week from Wizard World.
We're back here at the San Diego Comic Convention International in San Diego, California, and we're talking to Steven Sansweet this weekend. And how are you, Mr. Sansweet?
Great, Steve.
Steve, all right.
Kyle.
Steve it is. You are very widely known as one of the foremost authorities on Star Wars and Star Wars collectibles and memorabilia. What got you into the whole Star Wars experience?
It just sort of happened.
Really?
I saw Star Wars and just fell in love with it. I mean, when that Star Destroyer came over the first time, like so many of the rest of us, I fell in love with Star Wars. I was a collector of space toys before that happened. I was a sci-fi junkie. I grew up reading science fiction novels. I fell in love with Star Wars. I started collecting Star Wars, and it just sort of happened. And I amassed one of the largest Star Wars collections. I just sort of turned around one day, and it was all there. And 4 years ago, I went to work for Lucasfilm after writing a couple of books about Star Wars collectibles and the Star Wars Encyclopedia. And before I knew it, I had 8 books on Star Wars out, and now I'm head of fan relations for Lucasfilm. I work for Lucasfilm Marketing, and also I'm director of content management, which means for Lucasfilm Marketing, I'm in charge of image management and work in publicity. And that's what brings you here this weekend? Yeah, I'm doing a Dark Horse panel to talk about Star Wars a little, and Star Wars publishing, and a little bit about Episode 2, and answer some questions if I can, and just have a bunch of fun also, see what collectibles I can pick up.
Wow.
We did a major presentation last year about Episode 1, and we'll be back next year. Comic-Con was the first place in 1976 where Lucasfilm talked about the original Star Wars movies, so Comic-Con really has
So this is a little bit of a coming home.
Yeah, it really is.
Cool. Excellent. Well, now you have a private museum.
Yeah, it's sort of, I moved up to Northern California 2 years ago and brought my collection, which was in one floor of my house and about 5 storage lockers. And I had this big barn on my new property and was able to convert it into sort of my private museum. And so it's now in a place where I can really have people over, friends over, and show them my collection for the first time. So it's very exciting. It's a work in progress. It's never going to be completed, but it's really a lot of fun now.
What kind of unique and interesting items you got in there?
Oh,
some of the more special ones to you.
Yeah, everything from a mostly original Darth Vader costume that was worn in The Empire Strikes Back to a black velvet painting from Tijuana of Darth Vader. So, from the tacky to the sublime.
Wow, that's outstanding. That's outstanding. Well, thank you for joining us here
my
on Radio
pleasure.
Free.
It's great being here in Decipher land.
Oh, all right. Thank you very much. And we'll hopefully catch some of your presentations later this afternoon.
Thanks a lot.
Thank you.
Take care.
Back here at San Diego Comic-Con, I have with me now Steve Saffel of Del Rey Books. Hi there, how are you?
Good morning.
Thanks for taking some time to sit down with us. I know we have a lot of fans of the books in our play group, our gamers out there, and they'd be interested to hear some things you have to say about the Star Wars universe.
Okay, well, I've been involved with it for about 5 years now, since I came to Del Rey Books. I work predominantly on the nonfiction. So I've worked on projects like the Essential Guides, including most recently the Essential Chronology, the Star Wars Encyclopedia. Right now we're working on the expanded Guide to the Star Wars Universe, 3rd edition.
So your responsibilities really involve being sort of a custodian of all the different factoids that go through the Del Rey office in a way?
In many ways, yes. What I like to try to do is look at it from the point of view of the reader. What is it that the reader is most interested in, and what is it that the most readers are interested in? Because we have so many hundreds of thousands and millions of fans out there, many of whom don't read the books necessarily, and so I try to come up with ways to draw them into the books.
Right. And also, I suppose there's extra challenges in there, because you're not the only people that are creating things in the Star Wars universe right now. I mean, of course, we're putting little tidbits on our cards, naming characters in the background. You've got Dark Horse Comics producing stuff. How does that influence the work that you do?
It all influences us, and we're lucky in that we work very closely with folks like Sue Rustoni and Alan Couch at Lucasfilm, and authors like Kevin Anderson and Dan Wallace, Bill Slavacek, Steve Sansweet. These are the people who really are able to pull it all together and then bring it to life.
Now, there's been a lot of interesting things that you've been publishing recently on the Star Wars universe. You've had the series, the New Jedi Order series, been taking the characters in some very unusual new directions. How are you feeling about that series?
I think it's going really well. I think that what's happening here is that there's suddenly this huge new jolt of energy in the Star Wars universe. And I think the beauty of that is that it kept it from stagnating. We were able to take it and just explode in new directions. And I think that the fans are reacting, saying that they think this is a really great new direction.
Yeah, I imagine you've had a lot of reactions. I mean, starting off the series, of course, with Vector Prime, in which we see Chewbacca killed off. What's been the reaction of that type of material?
Well, of course, it's always going to be a mixed reaction, and everybody has their own personal feelings about it. But I got to say that one of the things it's done is it's tossed back in the drama. Because really, for there to be drama in the Star Wars universe, there has to be a sense of sort of the humanity of it, and there have to be ramifications. If things that go on in the Star Wars universe have no ramifications, they go nowhere, then there is no human drama. And this is what makes the Star Wars universe dramatic. People are now wondering, because it's no longer given that somebody is going to be around, that somebody is going to stay the same. The sense of change, the sense of excitement is really coursing through the Star Wars universe through the novels.
At the same time as the New Jedi Order is going on, you've also not long ago released Rogue Planet that takes place shortly after Episode 1. Are there going to be more novels along those lines that take place in or around the events of Episode 1?
We have a variety of plans. Really what we're going to be doing is working with the different authors and working with Lucasfilm to come up with a variety of ideas that make excellent novels. The thing to do is to make sure that we tell a wonderful story. So pretty much any time in the history of the Star Wars universe is going to be an option.
Any chance that you could maybe give us a little sneak preview of what might be coming up in the next few months for you guys?
Well, as I say, from my point of view, this fall in October we're going to have the new Guide to the Star Wars Universe, a 600-page edition. We've expanded it. We've heavily revised it. We've really shaken up the design so that it's a really cool new book that pretty much any Star Wars fan is going to want to have, because it's going to be strictly alphabetized and really dense-packed with info.
Excellent.
We've got the Central Guide to Alien Species coming out next spring, and I've got a couple of other nonfiction projects that I can't really talk about right now. I can tell you that I do have an author coming up who's an Academy Award winner.
Really? Outstanding.
I do also, I can tell you a little bit about the fiction. In August and October, you're going to see the 2 Jim Lucino Han Solo novels as he deals with the ramifications of Chewbacca's death and all of the things that are going on in the New Jedi Order. And those, as I say, will be mass markets under the Heroes Trial in August and October. And then in November, we've got the Kathy Tyers book coming out, Balance Point.
Okay. Stuff for us to look forward to.
I'll wrap up, maybe ask if there's any particular favorite character or favorite story that has been told by your group, maybe.
Favorite story, it's really hard to tell. I loved Vector Prime. I thought that Bob Salvatore did so many wonderful things with that novel, and he had such a tall order. It was so hard to be the person to launch the New Jedi Order. I can't even imagine how he did it so well. My favorite character probably would be Obi-Wan Kenobi.
Yeah.
I've just had an affinity for him from the moment he appeared in A New Hope.
Right. Okay. Well, thank you very much for taking time to sit down with us. Hope you enjoy the rest of the weekend here.
I think we will. I hope a lot of folks come by the Del Rey booth to see us.
Excellent.
Hi, we're back with Radio Free Decipher, and we're talking now with R.A. Salvatore, Mr. Robert Salvatore.
Bob
Salvatore.
Just Bob.
Bob, sounds good. Author of Vector Prime and various other fantasy novels, including a lot of the Dungeons & Dragons
Forgotten Realms
novels and some other novels that we'll talk about here in a minute. But what a lot of our fans are out there listening would like to know is about Vector Prime. Can you tell us a little bit about the death of Chewie?
Yeah, the death of Chewie. Back in August of '98, I got a phone call from Del Rey. And Shelley Shapiro, a friend of mine up there, one of the most respected editors in the field. I've been wanting to work with her for years. And she says, Bob, I need a favor. I need you to come on and do me a favor here, and it's going to be good for you, too, I promise. And I need someone that can come in and do a job and do it right and do it fast. And I said, well, I'm very busy, but what do you need, Shelley? You know, I'm not going to say no to Shelley. She's a dear lady. She said, I want you to write the first book in the New Jedi Order. New Jedi Order. Star Wars, me. You know, and she says, yeah. And I love Star Wars, particularly the movies. I mean, I was an 18-year-old kid in that theater, just like anyone else, and watched that Star Destroyer come over my head.
Oh man,
and it just blew me away. And so I wasn't going to do it initially because I was so busy. I'm doing a Dark Elf book every year, and I'm doing my favorite series, Demon War book, every year for Del Rey. But the next book I had due was the Demon War book. And she said, look, we can back that schedule to accommodate Star Wars. This is important. And then Terry Brooks called me up. And, of course, he had signed on to do the Phantom Menace. And he said, so, Bob, I hear you're thinking of saying no to Star Wars. Are you nuts? And it didn't take much more persuading than that. And, you know, honestly, even when I was thinking, you know, do I really have the time to do this? Do I want 4 more months of hard work? It was always in the back of my mind, I'm going to get to write dialogue for Luke and Leia and Han.
That's got to be pretty special.
It was pretty special. So it was in August. They needed the book in November. So what they did is they gave me an overview of New Jedi Order, this new threat, the Vong, from another galaxy. Only they weren't even called the Vong then. They wanted me to name them. And I said no, because 21 books are going to follow. They should name them. It should be a committee decision. But they wanted me to give them an outline. Let's say they wanted the story to go from A to Z, and they gave me the overview. They wanted me to give them an outline that would go from A to B. So I gave them an outline that would go from A to B. And when they got the outline, they realized they'd forgotten to tell me something, I guess. And Shelley Shapiro called me up and said, oh, yeah, and by the way, this, Chewie, has to be in the book. And I was like, no. And she said, no, this has been decided. It's gone right to George. You know, this has to be in the book. And I'm like, okay, where do I send the check back? Because I'm not doing this. You know, I want to be known as the guy that did Dark Elf. I want to be known even more than that as the guy that created Demon Wars, the whole Demon Wars saga. I want to be known as the guy that offed Chewie. You know?
Right, everybody's favorite. So.
But we sat down and we talked about it. I spoke with Mike Stackpole about it. And my initial reaction was, you know, if this is a marketing gimmick, I don't want anything to do with it. And once I learned the reasoning behind the whole decision, once I came to understand that the fear, more than the fear of losing characters had gone away from Star Wars. The readers were no longer even the slightest bit anxious when somebody was in danger. And they needed to bring that back, plus the fact that they had changed the rules. This is New Jedi Order. This was a time when anytime you see one of your favorite characters in a dogfight or in a lightsaber fight, you should be very worried that they could go away, because they can go away.
Absolutely, and I'll tell you, I picked up the book like days after it came out, and I had heard nothing about it, and Chapter 17 hit, man, and
Chapter 17.
I was I was so involved in that book. I could not put it down. I was like, my Lord, what is going to happen next? And that's exactly the feel that I think you guys were looking for.
Yeah, my favorite chapter in the book is actually the last chapter in the book when Han's talking about it, and talk a little more about that in a minute if you want. But there was something weird was happening in my life at the time that well, actually I can tell you now. My cat had been hit by a car. We lost the cat, and it was brutal. And for the first time in my life, in the loss situation, I had to be the adult. You know, up until that point when I had lost pets, I always had my mom and dad telling me. Now I had to tell my kids about it and explain it all to them. And that was a very trying time. And it was even more trying because at the time my mother-in-law was ill with terminal cancer. My brother, who passed away right after Vector Prime came out, was ill with terminal cancer. And now it was almost like a warm-up to tell the family about the cat. And I don't want to trivialize Chewie's death by talking about my cat, because anyone's had a pet and lost it knows. I mean, we had this cat for 9 years. It was like the coolest animal living. And I remember one day soon after I buried the cat, and I walked out of my garage, and I have this little convertible out there, and it was winter, so the top was up. And I looked on the bonnet. The cat, this was the only cat we had that would go outside. And when the cat wouldn't come in at night, we'd put the garage door up about 4 or 5 inches so the cat could get in the garage at least. And the cat would come in and sleep on the bonnet of the convertible. And when I went down to the car, there on the bonnet was all the hair.
Oh, man.
And that's where I got that whole thing about the hat. And it hurt. It hurt to do it. But all bets are off. I mean, on New Jedi Order, you should be afraid.
Yeah.
I think it makes it more fun.
Yeah, I've been reading all the sequels to it that Michael Stackpole's been writing, and it's some phenomenal writing, and the stories just absolutely hooked me. So.
And you never know.
Yeah,
every time they're in trouble,
time I read it, I'm
just
like,
don't
man,
know.
are they going to kill somebody off?
And I'll tell you now originally they had told me they had planned Chewie's death to be this. They hadn't planned it out. What they were really looking for was like this one-on-one fight where Chewie just takes the bullet for Han, so to speak, with Han cradling his head as he's dying, and I didn't want to do that for a couple of reasons. And I said, I'll do this, but you got to let me do it my way. So I've said before, and I'll say again, I won't take responsibility for the decision, but I will take responsibility for how it was done, because that was all my idea. That was the way I wanted to do it, and the reason was I really wanted to do something that would. Remember, I'm writing a book that's got to fuel 20 novels after it with different writers. I wanted to not give Han a focus for his anger. I know that, if he had seen a particular Vong, if Nama Nor had killed Chewie, then Han would be on this life quest to kill Nama Nor.
Yeah.
But now, he's even more lost.
He's milling around the apartment.
He doesn't know what to think.
Right.
He didn't even know it was the Vong at the time. I'm sure he's figuring that out now, but his focus is less direct, and that makes it all the more painful for him. And I hear Jim Lucino did some really good stuff with that in the next 2 books coming. I can't wait to read them.
Yeah.
Because I've shut myself off from NJO. I'm reading the books as they come out. I don't want to know anything about what's going to happen.
Right. Well, to change up a little bit, you are also going to be doing. That was your first Star Wars novel, and you're going to be doing some other Star Wars, at least a novel.
A novel, yeah. I'm going to be. Well, about 2 months ago, I got a call from Del Rey, and Shelley Shapiro said George wants you. A few months before that, when, like I said, my brother had died, Vector Prime came out. I was in a really bad place. Got some very angry reaction. I knew I was going to. We didn't know the depth of it. And I kind of just told them, I'm done with Star Wars. That's it. Have your galaxy far, far away, and leave me to my own worlds.
Okay.
But then they called and asked if I would be willing to be put on the list to do the novelization for Up 2. Because the way it works is Del Rey presents a list of authors they want to work with. That list goes to Lucas Books and Lucas Licensing, and they all go over it, and they narrow it down, and they present the final list to George Lucas, who makes the decision. And so I said, sure, put me on the list. I didn't think anything would come of it. Some pretty tough competition on that list. But then, I got the call, and George Lucas said me. So I'm doing the novelization for Ep 2, which is really kind of cool. I can't wait.
That is pretty cool.
Yeah.
I'm jealous. You get to find out what all is going on before everybody else.
Yeah. I don't think that's a good thing.
Yeah, let's not put your phone number on Radio Free. Let's not do that.
I will only do this book on a computer that has no internet access.
I bet. No.
But I don't think it's a good thing to know everything in advance. I'd rather go into that, like the Lord of the Rings. I'm not watching any trailers. I'm not listening to anything. I don't even want to know who's in the darn movie. I want to go in that theater knowing nothing and just enjoying it as they present it.
Yeah.
Afterwards, you can tell me all the details.
Absolutely. So you were the kid at Christmas time that didn't search around the house to find out what he was getting for Christmas.
Never.
Yeah, I wasn't like that. My brother was like that. But
my wife is like that.
Your wife's like that? You got to hide everything.
I always buy phony gifts.
Okay. Yeah. All right, let's talk about some of your other novelizations. Novels that you've been doing.
Yeah, I've done 17 Forgotten Realms novels. I wrote the second book on the Forgotten Realms called The Crystal Shard, came out in 1988, and there was a character in that book who I thought was going to be a sidekick character. Turned out taking over the book and pretty much taking over my career. It was a dark elf named Dritz Duerden, and he has become an incredibly popular character. I don't know why. If I did, I wouldn't be writing books. I'd be bottling formulas and selling it to other writers. I've written a whole bunch of books about Dritz, and people want more, and there will be more. There's a book coming out in October. Actually, Dritz isn't in it, but it's about the bad guys in the series, Artemis Entreri and Jarlaxle. And I've had a blast working in that shared world. In the meantime, I had done a couple of other series. I did the Spear Wielder's Tales for Ace, which are more lighthearted fantasies, so I'd have something to read to my kids. I did a rollicking adventure with my favorite character to write, a highway halfling named Oliver de Burrows, in the Crimson Shadow series for Warner. Oliver is my cross between Inigo Montoya of The Princess Bride and the little French guy on the wall of Monty Python and the Holy Grail.
All right.
I love Oliver. Tough to write, but a lot of fun. And then what happened a few years ago, I had a break with TSR over creative differences, and I got a phone call from Del Rey, and they said, we want you to come with us, and we want you to take as much time as you need to write the best book you can write. And that was music to my ears, because for all these years, I had been building my own fantasy world with magic based on gemstones, with religious system based on gemstones. It was an amazing world that was evolving in notes, but I knew I would never have the time to do it in this rush to get it done world. And then now I have the major publisher of fantasy telling me to do this. So I did. And
it's like a dream come true.
Yeah, it really was. 4 years ago, Demon Awakens came out. Then 3 years ago, Demon Spirit. And then last year, at the time, what I thought was the best book I'd ever written, The Demon Apostle, came out. And that completes the first Demon Wars trilogy. And I envisioned it to be 2 trilogies. The first Demon War, the second Demon War. And so I started writing the book called Ascendance, which would be the first book of the second Demon War, and I realized there were too many unanswered questions. So I wrote a book called Mortalis as a bridge. It's a place where people can jump on if they haven't read any of my work or any of my Demon Wars books, but it's a bridge between the 2 Demon Wars. And, when you're a writer, every time you write something, you give a little piece of yourself away. In the Chewy thing, I gave away those things that I felt about my own cat,
right,
if you will, and being the adult for the first time, like Han had to be with the kids. In Mortalis, I'm almost afraid that I gave away too much. The only way I can explain the book is I saw one of those wonderful behind-the-music shows from VH1, and it was about Fleetwood Mac, one of my favorite bands. And there's Stevie Nicks talking about the Rumors album, when she was breaking up with Lindsey Buckingham and the McVies were divorcing, and there was all this turmoil and everybody was really down. And she said the only way she could describe it was the pain was on the vinyl. Now, when I was writing Mortalis, I was watching my best friend, my brother, battle cancer, and we knew he couldn't win. It was horrible, horrible, horrible. 19 months of absolute hell. And the way I survived it, because I was with him every day, we walked every day, we were best friends. The way I survived that, though, was through my art. I poured everything right onto that page. And I can't read the book. I haven't read it yet. I can't. When I passed it into my editor, I said, Veronica, this is either really good or really self-indulgent. I'm too close to it to know which. And she called me back and said, there's no edit. This book's going right through. So I think I got it. And so far, everything I've heard, I got it. And someday I'll actually read it, probably a couple of years from now. But it was a very important book to me personally. And I think it's the deepest thing I've done. And now I'm almost done Ascendance, and the second Demon War has begun, and it's going to be nastier than the first.
Really?
Oh yeah. One thing, that you were talking about, that whole safety issue with Star Wars being, that bubble gone and everybody can go. Well, in Demon Wars, you better believe everybody can go.
Really?
People go all the time.
Scary, man. Scary.
Yeah. Brutal stuff.
It's always hard to see a loved character go, or a character that you feel a connection to.
Oh, it's hard to write.
Yeah, I bet.
Hard to write, but if you don't do it, once in a while at least, you get into this, I like to call it the EverQuest and Ultima syndrome, Ultima Online syndrome. Now, I'm not putting them down, I love those games, but, where if you die, you spawn somewhere else, you loot your body, and you go on with it.
Right.
Fantasy books can't be like that. There seems to be this understanding now that fantasy books, it's almost like more of a comic mentality, where you have a running series and the hero will survive or will come back if they die. And fantasy was never supposed to be that. Fantasy is an alternate reality. It's escapism, but it's not escapism from the truths of the world. It's not escapism from the fact that heroes die and people die. And that ultimate sacrifice is a necessary ingredient in fantasy. Fantasy is an escapism from a world where the individual doesn't count into a world where the hero, that single hero, can really make a difference. It's very hard to make a real difference on a big scale in our world. You can't. The political system, you got to be rich and that whole thing, you can make a personal difference on a small level. You can go work for Habitat for Humanity. You can just help out someone on the street. But in fantasy, you can be the hero that saves the world.
Absolutely.
You may die doing it, but that's okay.
Mm-hmm.
Especially if I'm writing it.
All right. Well, thank you very much for spending some time with us and our listeners today. And everyone, be sure and check out the Demon Wars saga and the Vector Prime if you haven't read it. So, thank you very much.
My pleasure. Absolutely.